We're going to be at a PS5 performance in ultra slim laptops by 2027, maybe 28. We'll be there. Half to 2/3 the raster of PS5, double the ray tracing of PS5. And welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. This episode is brought to you by Micro Center, who is undergoing an August build month right now, and then ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing, Tom?
Good. It's been a fun weekend over here. I actually went to the Tomato Festival in East Nashville.
You've brought the Tomato Festival. I think I've been there once during the Tomato Festival, but we didn't go for some reason.
Yes, I don't remember. That was years ago. I don't remember why. We had like several things to go to. I want to say, including like a comedian. Like, weren't we seeing Joe List?
We might have been.
And so we had saw who's, by the way, can't recommend Joe List enough. Every time I've seen him, I've died laughing.
Yeah, I remember seeing him. I think I was probably laughing the loudest in the audience, and it was a real weird audience. So.
It was a very weird audience, which having Joe List there made it even better. I don't think we were able to go to that before, but we went. It's just in a little, just really like a block festival that East Nashville does around 5 Points, and so that was a lot of fun. And also went out to the dog park with the dog. We saw Michael Longfellow, which I haven't talked to you about him yet. Big recommend on him. One of the much weirder than I expected, by the way. Although in hindsight, I don't know why I didn't think he would be odd, but he was absolutely hilarious as well.
His last name is a very good description of him, as he
is a long fellow. Yes. But so, I mean, comedians, festivals, it's been a fun time over here. I know I wouldn't say the weekend because you have on non-standard work schedule, but how has your week been?
Pretty good so far, I suppose. We're getting through the work week that is most people's weekend, but enjoying the job. If anybody at work is watching, hi. One of them brought it up today. So
brought up what?
This podcast.
They're a fan.
One of them I think he figured out the days I record. So,
and then he's like,
we'll
okay,
we'll see.
But I'll bring this up now. I was going to bring it up near the end, but I think this would be a good kind of opening conversation because I brought up Battlefield 6 to you, and you said some of your coworkers were talking about Battlefield 6. Have you had a chance to play it yet?
Unfortunately not. I was hoping to be able to get into a battle tonight before I go to bed, but we'll see.
We'll see if we'll jump on. But I will say I played it actually a ton yesterday as well. That also made Saturday fun for me. And then the day before, I played a tiny bit in the middle of the night on my Strix Halo laptop as well, plugged into my green screen. I was planning to play on my 9070 XT and then put the 4090 back in and start playing on that this afternoon. But it occurred to me that this game on PC requires secure boot. And I'm like, I'm not doing that the day we're supposed to record. If that bricks my install of Windows 11 I actually had a ton of stuff to do that we'll get to in a second as well. Like I have an announcement for the Patreon. And I got a lot actually done today, more than I usually would on a Sunday besides recording it. So I'm like, I'm not doing this with all the stuff I have to do. But what I do want to do is report a few things at the start here, because I know everyone's talking about Battlefield 6. I just want to say, this is the best Battlefield I played in a long time, and by far the most stable Battlefield I played as well. I think this beta is smoother and more stable than Battlefield 1 was after a year of patches. And that game ran well.
Pretty well,
yeah. I was absolutely shocked, whether on my Strix Halo laptop or on a PS5 Pro, how well it ran. I mean, got it to go 4K 80 with medium settings. I had FSR 3.1 on and dynamic res, but I couldn't see any low resolution. Obviously it wasn't enough for me to notice while sitting on a couch. And that's, with an APU. And then on PS5 Pro, I don't know the exact resolution, but it looks very sharp. and it seems to be running above 100 frames per second at all times in performance mode, usually locked at 120. Excellent controller support and mouse and keyboard support on both console and PC. And that's important because a lot of people will make fun of us, but it's like, flying a helicopter, you might want to use a controller at a minimum on PC. And sometimes the controller support was just so hit or miss if it would work. No issues. It might as well be a native PlayStation 5 game, at least, with haptic triggers. That is what you're getting with.
Yeah, and that's very good to know, because there was some... I mean, Battlefield has always had controller support, but there's always been like weird things with it where, like, if you disconnect the controller on accident, some of them you have to like restart the game sometimes. I don't think that was an issue.
I think it was mostly a Battlefield 3 issue.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I don't remember if that affected Xbox or not, but it may have even back then, where sometimes, like, if your controller's not connected when you start the game, it just doesn't work. It made absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I mean, hearing what you've said so far about it, and like what you texted me about, like how stable it is, has me really optimistic about the game, because, like, I think on the last Dice Drink we recorded, that was the thing I was most nervous about, is if Dice manages to, launch a really good game, or the bones of a good game, in that just doesn't work for one stupid reason or another, because that's often what happens with Dice games, is they just have issues at launch. And at this point, I think they knew that the Battlefield series was a little bit on life support. So hearing that even in beta, it's very stable and it's actually working well is awesome to hear, because that's been my favorite shooter series for a while, and B, there just aren't very many good shooter series out right now.
Especially modern ones.
Yeah, so I'm excited for something to play online again.
Yeah. And that's a funny thing as well. Like, I could get into like the gun handling and all of that. I don't know. It's good. Every bit as good, I think, as like a modern Call of Duty or anything else. I actually think we don't need to get into the gun handling and the gameplay that much, because the fact is, it's like the only modern shooter right now that doesn't have a girl with cat ears and freaking Jigsaw running around online.
Although there's
Call of
still
Duty's
time.
Ruined by that, by the way. Ruined. Call of Duty's been ruined by that. And so it's kind of wins by default if you want a modern shooter, I guess, is my point. The only other thing I'd say is the vehicles are really fun, and the destruction with them is really fun as well.
So how's the destruction physics then to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very, very good. I played one of the, I think, 3 maps for the first time last night. After hours of playing, they finally let me play one that I believe is in like a Spanish coastal city. And so finally I was in some... because one of the maps is Cairo, so it's a lot of stone, not all the buildings collapse. So, but this Spanish apartment complex, it was complete insanity. There were holes in random floors, and it was like, so I will say the destruction is definitely there. Vehicles are very powerful in a way I don't think they've been since Battlefield 3, and I think that's a good choice. Vehicles there should be only so many, and they should be as strong as vehicles should be. But I mean, besides that, the handling of them was very good. The sound was crazy. My girlfriend actually said she might have to like put on headphones next time, because she thinks it's a war movie, and it's actually kind of like over stimulates her audio wise, because it's actually
an Alex Garland movie.
I was about to say, it reminded me a lot of the movie Warfare, where the APCs show up. You can do that in the game, where it's just like just like level an entire floor. I was like, this is exactly like in the movie Civil War or Warfare. So, yeah, no, but all of that's great. The only final things I want to get to before we move on to the actual main content of the episode is 2 things. One thing that stood out to me was a caveat for 2 pros and cons to the console version. A con I'll get to for right now. This game has a lot going on, and there's a lot to noticing someone in the distance, and it doesn't hold your hand as much as other games where they just put a giant aura around them so you can see them. And so I really had to squint at the TV, and it's a 55-inch that I'm like, I don't know, like what, 4 or 5 feet away from. So it's not like, I like a big TV that's fairly close to me. I will say you'll be at a bit of an advantage right next to a monitor, because you really do have to look for enemies. It doesn't hold your hand to identify them. So that's a con to the console version, but really not a con. I mean, just sit closer or use it on a monitor. It's not really the PlayStation's fault. But a pro, I mean, this thing loads in 4 seconds, and it does not on PC. And I'm saying map to map, the match ends. it shows the loading screen, and it's just like this, the bar, and you're in.
Yeah,
And
I will have to.
That really stands out to me. So I will say, if you're someone with like an RX 580, certainly, or maybe even just a 6600, but then you also have like a PS5 or maybe even just a PS5, let alone a PS5 Pro, you might want to consider the console version. Now, if you're someone with like a 5090, obviously you're going to be able to. It's going to be a real dilemma, I think, for people whether to get the PS5 Pro or the PC version if they have both systems, especially if one of them is a bit stronger or weaker than the other, because there's real pros and cons to going to the PlayStation version this time around. But having said that, on the PC version, even if you like using a controller or whatever, it's the best running PC game I've ever used. So it's not like there's less friction either way. And remember, this game lets you save saves across them. So I mean, I might just get both. I don't know. Like eventually, when one goes on sale, I imagine I'm going to own this game on both platforms eventually, just to use it anywhere, whether it's a PlayStation Handheld or my laptop, depending on what I have with me.
Well, and the chances that we'll see. I was going to say the chances that it becomes a PS Plus game are non-zero, but I don't know how high I would put that, because
like you get it on PC and wait for it to come to PS Plus.
Yeah, I wonder how if part of the reason that it came to like
2042 just so everyone knows, is on PlayStation Plus, and Dan and me have that. And so sometimes if we're lazy, instead of booting up our gaming PCs, we'll just sit on the couch. But I'm assuming you're about to say, 2042 sold the worst out of all the recent Battlefield, so of course it came to PS Plus.
I wonder if it just came to PS Plus because it was kind of a failing game at the time, where this, I think has a really good chance to resuscitate the franchise. So maybe it won't. But yeah, I'll need to think about which I'm going to get it on. I mean, I think I'm leaning towards PC, but we'll see.
I think I am too, just so I can use it on my laptop on the go. Yeah. Right? It's like the PlayStation Handheld's out now, but we'll see. We'll see. You try it for at least 10 minutes tonight, because when you see how easy it is to just jump into a game on PlayStation, you might change your mind. But the other hand, if you just play it on PC and it takes 5 seconds anyways, you might go, well, who cares? I don't know. I recommend trying both. It's just, in general, though, all versions work very well. The secure boot thing is very annoying, though, is what I will say. All right, let us now move on here. I'm actually going to skip some of this stuff in the beginning, because I feel like we used up some of our small talk time too much here. We should just get right into the stories. So let us tarry no farther and move on to story number 1. AMD RX 9060 8GB, W7400 and RX 7400 8GB graphics cards quietly announced. Going to quote from a few articles here. The first one's from Tech Power Up on August 5th. AMD has officially posted a product page with details, specifications of the RX 9060 non-XT, providing us with something a bit different from what we initially expected, featuring 28 RDNA 4 compute units. This is a significant downgrade from the RX 9060 XT, which featured 32. Well, the 32 initially turned out to be a cut-down variant built on the same Navi 44 XL die, most likely coming from a lower bin. And also, I will point in here, as well as isn't in the write-up, heavily limited in clock speed. So I think when Carbon Cry wrote this, he was referencing the downgrade. It's not just that it has 10% less compute units. They don't let you overclock it, and the 9060 XT can go to 3.3 gigahertz. So this thing will perform 20% worse here. All right. Next, another article from Tech Power Up from August 7th. AMD has silently introduced a new Radeon Pro W7400 graphics card based on the RDNA 3 architecture. It uses the 33 GPU. The Radeon Pro W7400 joins the Radeon Pro 7600 and 7500, which were introduced 2 years ago. The new 7400 is honestly quite similar to the Pro W7500, as it packs the same Navi 33 GPU with 28 compute units. However, it has a lower 5.55 watt TDP and comes with reduced clocks, pushing the GPU boost clock down to, just 1.1 gigahertz, while memory works at 10.8 gigabit per second, leaving it with only 172.8 gigabits per second of memory bandwidth, and peak performance is rated at 7.9 teraflops of FP32. Final one comes from Tom's Hardware on August 9th. The Radeon RX 7400, also like the W one, features 28 RDNA 3 compute units, equivalent to around 1,800 stream processors. This is 12.5% less than the 7600. So the performance gap on this one, though, might not be that big. And so, there was a flurry of AMD announcements for random little graphics cards this week, one coming every 2 days, it seems. I don't think there's that much to say about the 9060. This seems to be an OEM only version, a super budget, cooler, budget board, cost optimized variant of the 9060 card, probably about 10 to 20% weaker. And then there is the Navi 33 7400, which we will just say, finally, we will have a truly budget card that is something probably, significantly better than a 6500 XT, and proves that we were right to suggest that Navi 33 will probably be rebranded and reused for many years to come. So yeah, I don't have much else to say here, except that 7400 does not require a PCIe connector, and I think it's a much better option than the 6500. We don't know pricing yet, but let's say that one was like $180. It's not interesting, but a 7400 8GB is a much better choice than a 3050 6GB. So I don't know. What do you think about these graphics cards, Dan?
I mean, if it's this, 9060 is just generally an OEM model. I mean, I'm sure we'll see some of them come to eBay used at some point, but again, that's just going to be a very base model thing. I mean, probably slightly better. I mean, a bit better than like a 7600, I suppose. So, that exists, and if it comes to the DIY market at any point, I hope we get a decent like sub $250 graphics card in that, and then the 7400 if this is just like a soft cancellation of the 7600 and
like the 6500 XT, I'd say.
Yeah, that they just used to put out Navi 33 drag yields for forever, or just not having to do that much to bin it. Sure, I'm happy with that. I do think a low price card, or as low price as cards can get with 8GB coming out, is good for the market, and this is probably good enough for 1080p indefinitely.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're willing to turn down some settings.
Yeah, I mean, 1080p is so easy to run, though. I mean,
true.
I would suggest, that your thing about binnings. Yeah, I mean, moving forward, I think it would make sense for AMD to have the 7600 XT 16GB keep being sold as like a $300 or less card. I mean, you're not going to ever need more than that for 1080p, especially once that gets FSR4 support. You can just keep pumping those out. And then a $200 7400 that's just a weaker 7600, but easy to bin and endlessly supply. That's better than a 3050. Is it better than a 5050? No, but as long as it can be substantially cheaper. Again, something I keep saying, the cheapest 8GB card is kind of the best one, because at that point, VRAM is the issue anyways. And on your note of like an interesting sub $250 card, I think, unfortunately, it might not be until RDNA 5 that happens, because that's when they'll finally have budget and high capacity GDDR7 available that will finally give us maybe 12GB cards for $200, maybe, or even 250. Just even that, ones that work too and can actually boot Battlefield 6, by the way, not the ones that Intel currently wants us to buy that can't even play the latest games randomly.
Yeah, I mean, I think once we get to 12GB, that's those offerings are a lot better. But at the moment, I guess 8GB is still the base level we're getting. And like you said, the cheapest you can get is kind of the best you can get when it comes to 8GB in this day and age.
Yeah, so not much else to say about these cards, but I definitely thought there was enough of these that these could be a story about a flurry of
new, of 8 gigs.
The flurry of new, never announced to fit, like never, I should say just quietly
never announced to fanfare.
Never announced to fanfare budget cards from AMD. All right, let us now then move on to story number 2. AMD Zen 5 Threadripper reviewed. Quoting here from Hardware Unboxed. AMD's latest Ryzen Threadripper 9000 series arrives with a familiar formula: massive core counts, eye-watering specs, and price tags to match. It is built, of course, on the Zen 5 microarchitecture. These chips pack up to 64 cores and 128 threads, along with 80 lanes of PCIe 5.0 connectivity in the non-WX Threadripper lineup, which they are actually supporting this time. As with previous generations, the lineup is split into two: a high-end HEDT range called Threadripper 9000 and a workstation class series known as Threadripper Pro 9000WX. This is in contrast to standard Threadripper 9000 series. The WX model extends the core counts up to 96 cores, offers broader platform compatibilities, but at nearly $12,000 for a chip, they cater to a different class of buyer, clearly. These models also have access to 128 PCIe lanes and expanded memory configurations, assuming you pair them with the right motherboard, that is. So, with Zen 5, AMD's 9000 series builds steadily on the solid foundation laid by Zen 4. The platform compatibility remains intact, which is welcome news in an industry that often demands new everything for marginal gains. That said, we do not expect most current Threadripper 7000 owners to feel compelled to upgrade. For newcomers to the platform, however, this is the Threadripper to get if you haven't been interested in Threadripper since the Zen 1 or Zen 2 days. And that is because the 9980X offers up to 18% better performance than its predecessor at the same price. AMD is not just raising price for more performance like this time around, like they have been for many Threadripper generations in a row. Anyways, moving on. Intel is competing in the Xeon W9 3595X, a 60-core workstation processor priced north of $5,900, is technically in the same category as AMD's new Zen 5 Threadrippers, but the category is where the comparison ends. At that price, it is not a desirable product anymore, especially considering that it is slower than the 9980X, often much slower. For example, in Cinebench 2024, the Xeon scores around 3,800 points, trailing the 9980X by roughly 75%. AMD claims up to an 83% advantage in their press deck, but either way, 75, 83, Intel's getting crushed in that matchup while also consuming more power and even costing more. Meanwhile, when it comes to reliability, we have to note that we have been using the prior generation Zen 4 Threadripper on an Asus Pro WS TRX 50 Sage Wi-Fi for nearly 2 years. Every video published on the Hardware Unboxed channel during that time has been produced on this platform, so we have extensive hands-on experience with it. We are happy to report that it has been rock solid. That reliability stands in sharp contrast to the Threadripper 5000 series, which is something me and you talked about a lot a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly the ill-fated 5995WX, a chip that left us frustrated enough to abandon Threadripper altogether. We spoke at length about these issues in our Threadripper 7000 review, specifically the disappointing performance of the 5995WX. Zen 4 therefore brought redemption, and Zen 5 appears to be continuing that trajectory. The 7980X has delivered a near flawless experience, and we expect the same from the 9980X, which we will be transitioning to as our new workhorse. So, yep, Zen 5 Threadripper is here, and it dominates as expected. While Sapphire Rapid Xeons were a much-needed shot in the arm for the workstation market, AMD already dominated with their Zen 4 Threadrippers. So, it is nice to see they are not abandoning budget workstation as they did with Zen 3, which only got a Threadripper Pro release and didn't have real driver support. Still, AM5 must be noted, has the best price per core. If you don't need the PCIe expandability and your workload doesn't scale that well to 32 cores, just get a 9950X. All right, Dan. Zen 5 Threadripper. Any thoughts?
I mean, obviously, I think go to the more the people with the experience that need this more than me. But yeah, I mean, AMD continues to dominate in this market, which makes sense. They have a better design that's more scalable than Intel does at this point, which makes it their platform both cheaper and better. And as long as it's stable, obviously go with it.
Yeah. I don't have that much else to add. I mean, my biggest takeaways you remember this, right, Dan? I feel like a year ago we were like, ooh, maybe Intel with like Fishhawk Falls and the refresh of that is going to be a real option. And it was to a lot of people. I know every now and then someone I know here who's in a band but edits their band's music. I think their name is Vice Tone. He'll reach out to me like, where is the good Threadrippers? And I'll just say, I don't know, man. They're coming. And then I believe he still upgraded to Intel and said the new refresh of Fishhawk Falls was very, very good. You know, Intel had like half a year in the sun, but it seems like AMD just closed the door again. And seeing some of the pricing on their non-pro variants actually being reasonable again tells me they were lazy, but they're taking them seriously now.
Because what, the 9970 was what, 3,000 or something like that? Or
9970X Threadripper price.
Oh, 2,500, or at least according to Tech Power Up, it says 2,500.
Yeah, so that's what the price probably should be. I mean, you're paying a premium. You know, compared to MSRP.
Premium.
compared to MSRP, you're paying like double the price performance of a 16 core, maybe a little more than that of a Zen 5. But you get this huge platform with all of these features. It isn't like before where they're like, if you want to get into this, it's $6,000. This is much, 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 much more reasonable. I'll be very curious. I'm very happy to hear the software support is there. So I'll be very curious to see what they do though, like with a Zen 6 or maybe later platforms. Like what like how many more generations can they fit onto this Threadripper socket? Because Techno writes in and says, with Intel having so many problems and with Threadripper 9000 being a marginal improvement over Threadripper 7000, why doesn't Intel bring back GDT high-end boards? Like if Intel could use Granite Rapids Workstation for it, would compete well with Threadripper, especially since 2 lots of the 43 and 44 core tiles could compete well with AMD. Well, Techno, I think there might be good reason for AMD to continue to be aggressive with Threadripper over the next couple of years because, like I said in my Nova Lake leak, which we'll get to soon, I know a lot more about what's coming after Nova Lake desktop, including workstation parts, Razor Lake, and Titan Lake stuff. And I think AMD will need to be aggressive with Threadripper, and they will need a good Zen 6 one. And stay tuned, Techno.
Crossing my fingers.
Intel is going to have something at least interesting on paper coming. I'll say that right now. All right. Speaking of something being interesting on paper, let us move on to story number 3. Zen 5 double X3D allegedly being prepared for launch. Quoting here from Tech Power Up, AMD is reportedly gearing up to expand its Ryzen 9000 Granite Ridge lineup with 2 all-new Zen 5 CPUs to push the limits of power draw and cache capacity. Their Chili Dog claims that, his cultivated ties with motherboards, that AMD will introduce an 8-core 16-thread model rated at 120 watt TDP. Dan, can you look up 9800 X3Ds? Featuring a substantial 96 megabytes of L3 cache. This mirrors the cache density of the existing 9800 X3D, of course, but could represent a distinct SKU. More striking, though, of course, is the rumored 16-core 32-thread part, a 200-watt processor, allegedly, above the 170 watts we see with the current 9950 X3D. And also having 192 megabytes of cache. According to the leak, this chip then would feature dual CCD with X3D, not just one of them, but 2 of them, and also a higher TDP, suggesting these might also boost higher than the existing model as well. Alongside the launch of the supposed HD platform, these are rumors that AMD is about to shake up their real high-end desktop further with a dual Vcache 16-core part. If AMD truly releases the CPU, we should expect it to be the king for gaming and for productivity. But why would AMD release this CPU? They already lead by a mile, especially in mindshare. And how expensive will this be? Well, I'll say this. Carbon Cry wrote that. I think I can tell you why with what Intel's got coming in the next story. But yeah, what is the TDP of the 9800 X3D? Is it 105?
120.
It is 120. Huh. So I don't know so this to me sounds like this would just be a better bin variant. And then they'd also have a ultra golden sample bin dual X3D variant. I have my thoughts on this. What do you think?
I'm very curious. Like you said, on paper, I'm curious how good of a product the 9950 double X3D, I guess I don't know what you would even call it, is in real world performance, because there is a reason that they did this 2 generations in a row, decided to have one CCD use Vcache and one CCD be the standard non-Vcache CCD. And some applications get massive benefits from the Vcache, some don't really get huge benefits from it. And if it's using the right CCD properly, the argument, I guess, is you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. And I'm curious how true that argument is. Like, do you get that much more performance in games that benefit from Vcache if you do have the 2 cores, or does it really not add that much to it? And I think if
outside of efficiency, I would assume they'd be more efficient.
Yeah, that's true. And if this doesn't see the light of day, I'm assuming that the answer is you don't really get much of a benefit out of it. But if this comes out, obviously, it's going to deliver some performance in games that will make this probably the best gaming CPU out there.
Well, some applications do benefit from Vcache. I think I have 2 main thoughts on this one. The first one is, look, we're about to get to my Nova Lake leak. if you haven't seen it yet, go watch that now. Come back to the Broken Silicon, but make sure you come back.
Watch all of it.
Watch all of it twice. But, what I leak in that, which we'll, again, discuss in much more detail in a second, is that Nova Lake is giving a mountain of cash to both of their CCDs in Nova Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I have also heard, and I think I've said this before, that Zen 6's desktop release date could slip to the very end of 2026, maybe even the beginning of 27. Again, don't quote me as being sure of that, but I've heard that one's the one coming out last. And Nova Lake does seem on track for just a quarter 3 or 4 release.
This year, right?
Yeah, 26.
26, sorry.
And so if you think about it, if AMD is preparing some new mega flagship with Zen 5 for the end or beginning of next year, and Intel might have Nova Lake out half a quarter before, half a quarter or half a quarter to 2 quarters before desktop Zen 6. Even if there's a chance that could happen, AMD might be like, if we can boost performance another 10% on average, let's just get that out there, and then maybe this will tie Nova Lake and gaming and, lose productivity by only 20%, and then no one will want to upgrade to Nova Lake over just waiting for Zen 6. There's no way around it. That's the only way I can read, AMD doing this. They would only do this if they thought they had to, because when you put 2 Vcache CCDs on a 9950X, I don't know, double D, whatever we want to call it, that is one less CCD you could have used for a 9800 X3D. And that's also more expensive than just putting a much worse CCD next to it, that isn't
True.
binned as highly. So AMD's only doing this because they think they have to.
I mean, this could be like a late gen release too, like they tend to do to deflate whatever Intel is about to put out or about to announce.
Oh, I just forgot an obvious thing too. So guys, I haven't leaked this yet. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm going to talk about this in much more detail, probably at the end of the week that this podcast comes out. I think AMD may have some reason to be a little worried about Arrow Lake Refresh. That's all I'll say for now. I don't think Arrow Lake Refresh is that 8+32 thing. I mean, look, from what I've heard, that's canceled. But I think there's a few tricks up its sleeve in performance, especially in gaming, that AMD will have to worry about. And if I think about what I've heard, yes, this Zen 5 flagship might be just enough to still hold the crown against everything Arrow Lake Refresh will be doing.
That's interesting.
And not just hold the crown, but keep the lead where it is, basically. So, again, that's what I think is obviously going on here. AMD's worried about Arrow Lake Refresh. They're worried about Nova Lake, especially if Zen 6 may come out after Nova Lake. And they want to make sure they have something that, keeps them in the fight until the Zen 6 flagships come out. So that has to be true, or they wouldn't do this. But the other thing I want to say is I'll be really curious to see if AMD's been lying to us the whole time, because I've been sitting here leaking to you guys that AMD's considered doing dual Vcache for at least the Zen 5 generation, and then they just didn't, and they decided not to win after they saw how much Arrow Lake sucked. So I swear to God, if this comes out and it boosts gaming performance another 15%, or even productivity on average goes up just 10%, let alone if it goes up more in some of these apps, I think we can just go, yeah, okay.
They were just saving money.
Yeah, you're just saving money, which they were. I mean, I'm sorry, they were. They were saving money, and more importantly, capacity. I think there's no way. I think we're going to find that, because, again, just like AMD wouldn't launch this CPU unless they had an Arrow Lake Refresh or Nova Lake to worry about before Zen 6 is ready. I also don't think they would release this unless it actually boosted performance. It's not just marketing, guys.
Yeah, that's true, because that is a fair point. What I was saying about the benefits is kind of just if I buy the AMD hook, line, and sinker, especially with this generation. There's really very few. There's really very few drawbacks to the Vcache at this point, as opposed to the first generation of Vcache they put out.
Yeah, so I mean, if this leak turns out to be true, which I think I've heard it's likely true, but I can't confirm anything that this person said about specs from the people I've talked to behind the scene, then, 200 watts, what that tells me is that they're going to push this thing to a higher all-core than their other ones, and the boost clock may be 5.8 gigahertz. And again, that I think we might learn that there was absolutely no reason they couldn't have given us another 10% performance a long time ago.
That's
and Zen 4
could have been better.
Dark Side of the Force writes in and says, have you heard any plans for an AM4 10-year celebration? I swear, every time someone said AM4 is dead, Lisa Su just pulls out a new CPU from her hat. Besides that, do you have any info about RDNA 5 dedicated power and clock speeds yet? Yes, I put out a leak on this YouTube channel called Moore's Law is Dead, where I have an entire chart that says power. In terms of clock speeds, I guess I didn't really say that yet. From what I can tell, the clock speed isn't radically higher than RDNA 4. But it's just what I've seen so far. We are years away from the launch. Now, as to your other question about AM4, I don't know, guys. I wouldn't worry about AM4. AM5 is where it's at. I mean,
I don't really know what else you could put out at this point for AM4, a 5450 X3D or so. Like,
well, it would be funny if they did an X3 double D for the 5950, just like they did the 9950 at the same time. But I think it's too little, too late. I mean, that was a year or two ago where that would be interesting. Who hasn't moved on to AM4? And I mean, I will just say that from what I'm hearing behind the scenes, AM5 is going to be around for a pretty long time. Won't say anything else besides that yet, but AM5 is going to be around for a very long time. Don't wait if you want to upgrade. Where I'm sitting, it's like if you have a good Zen 3 X3D and none of your apps are showing issues, stay on it. If you want to upgrade, I mean, there's just ridiculous deals right now, which actually I cannot avoid this amazing transition talking about the excellent deals you can getting AM5 products from Micro Center. This piece of content is brought to you by Micro Center. August is Micro Center's build, upgrade, and save event. Check out some amazing deals on items to build your own PC. They have deals on CPUs. Like, I think they have 9800 X3Ds below MSRP with 32 gigabytes of RAM for free with like $50 off a motherboard. That's where I'm like, if you're happy with what you got, that's good and you should keep it. But there has never been a better time, especially at Micro Center. So don't wait. I've seen people saying, I'm going to wait for AM6. Sure, if you're happy. But I wouldn't like tie yourself down to a chair and say, I can't get anything now until AM6. That's a very long time from now. Also, they have a Micro Center coming to Phoenix, Arizona. It will be located there, and you can get VIP deals if you sign up right now. And if you sign up to receive information about the new Phoenix, Arizona location, you'll get a free 128 gigabyte flash drive when the store opens. And also, they're running some amazing deals on Samsung SSDs through the month of August as well. They have all kinds of memory sizes, 1, 2, even 4 terabytes, Dan. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what else there is to say. Micro Center is the best prices, especially on CPUs and building from scratch. I check out the links below. It really helps. And I think now is a very good time to build a platform. And these platforms will be around for a long time, at least in AMD's case this time. And so whatever you get now, one thing I always say is if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm on Zen 2, I don't know if I should go to Zen 3 X3D. A lot of those ones they used to make are sold out too, so I'd have to pay a premium. I would say keep in mind that you can sell your old Zen 2 system. You can buy a new, maybe budget $150 CPU Zen 4 system, Zen 5 system, like a 9700. I forgot how cheap they go for. It's like well below MSRP. And then if Zen 6 or later comes out, you can just sell your old one. You can sell your old system or your old CPU. And like, what did you really save? Like $150 net by waiting all of this time when you could have had all these years of having a better experience. So again, check out the links below to Micro Center. I'm really glad that they sponsor us. And I think now is genuinely a great time to build a new platform. But anyways, speaking of new platforms, Dan, let us move on to one that I am, for the first time in a while from Team Blue, actually excited about. With story number 4, Intel Nova Lake specs and performance leaked. After months of mainly AMD leaks, and there's more coming, by the way, we decided to take a break at Moore's Law is Dead and talk about Nova Lake again. Now, we did already reveal Nova Lake in 2023, including telling you everything you need to know about core counts and performance. And since then, that has all been corroborated. But the other leaks and rumors out there, some of them corroborating what we've leaked, but some of them were spreading, frankly, just incorrect information from what I've been told by my sources recently. And so I thought now, or I guess last week, would be a good time to update you all on what the latest Nova Lake information is as of 2025. And so here it is. In summary, Nova Lake should launch late 2026. The total core count for the flagship on desktop will have 52 cores and 52 threads. A reminder that it still will not have hyper-threading. But this will comprise of 2 core dies, each core die having 8 big cores, 16 little cores, 2 of those, and then on I believe it was hub die, you will have 4 little cores, and that is how you get to 52 cores total. Now, this is important to note because although I've seen people suggest they could have 2 CCDs, go up to 52 cores, I haven't seen anyone talk about the fact that that means that it's not that there's 16 P cores on a die and a bunch of E cores on a die. It's 8 plus 16 times 2, meaning despite what a lot of people have speculated, Intel is not going to have a P-core gaming advantage against AMD Zen 6. You're not going to have this thing where it's 16 P-cores over here and then 12 Zen 6 cores, and AMD and Intel can win in some games that want to use more, 16 threads. It's going to use 8 P-cores, and then that's out. It's out of cores, and there's no hyper-threading. Now, to be fair, the E-cores can access the same L3 cache this time in different clusters. So I don't know that that's going to be an issue. You still get 24 threads total, but I do think that's worth pointing out. However, moving on to some good news, the most exciting information from a specs perspective is that the BLLC, or Big Last Level Cache, which is kind of Intel's answer to Vcache, these dies will have 144 megabytes of L3 cache each, going to a total of 288 megabytes of L3 cache. Remember, Zen 5 is going up to 192. So Intel's kind of going right for AMD Zen 6 and how much L3 cache they're giving you. They're be pretty comparative. And it's not stacked cache, though. It is a pool on die that the E and the P cores on a ring bus go around, meaning they all can access in the center the L3 cache, which sounds great for performance, but because it's not being stacked, and apparently they're not going to stack it until Titan Lake, I have to say that sounds really expensive. But moving on to other things from this leak, probably the most worrying thing is that only one of the dies, or maybe 2, one below this one with only 2 cores, that is to say there is like there's the 8 plus 16 Big Last Level cache die. 2 of those will make the flagship. Then below, that'll be your Ultra 9s. Below that will be Ultra 7s, probably, with just 1 Big Last Level cache. 24 plus, 28 cores, because the 4 little cores, super low power cores. And then below that, you'll go to 8 plus 16, normal amount of cache, 36 megabytes. That's probably the i5. So not as good gaming performance, a little worse multi-threading, but still 28 cores total. Below that is another die. But where I'm not talking about the 6 plus 8 or the 4 plus 8. There's an ultra budget die that's 4 plus 0, so just 4 big cores, but then
Would that just be like Pentiums even? Probably.
I didn't even call them Pentiums. I think they just call them Intel cores these days. But yeah, I mean that class.
Yeah.
That's the only one I saw that uses 18A. Now, I don't know, maybe some mobile 2 plus 8 variant will use 18A, but at least on desktop, I've only seen the ultra budget die using 18A. And so I just have to highlight that, it's great for performance. Most of the lineups using TSMC 2 nanometer plus, but what that tells me is that to me is an Occam's razor. 18A is not good. Everyone's been arguing about who's right online. I think at least the i5 tier would use 18A, wouldn't you? If it was even remotely comparable to TSMC.
I mean, if you're looking for a good good way to advertise your new 18A node, at least like get the Ultra 5, the ideal gaming CPU
that you mass produce.
Yeah, you would want that, but no, if their budget CPUs are 18A, that's don't like that.
But anyway, so I've covered the specs. Now let's move on to what we should expect out of performance. For the normal 36 megabyte version, the non-Big Last Level cache version, the one I said should probably be using i5s, I have documents that say, and again, I'm not going to average them or give you my final estimate. I'm just telling you what I've seen so far. This is subject to changes. This product is still a year away. But what I've seen is that the i5 tier, without a ton of cache, should get 10 to 15% more gaming performance over Arrow Lake. So, better than Zen 5 non-X3D, but not even as good as Zen 5 X3D. And then 16% higher single threading and 12% higher multi-threading. Now, this is 8 plus 16 versus 8 plus 16. When we move on to the Big Last Level cache variants, they should get 30 to 45% more gaming performance than what Arrow Lake gives you. So that would tell me probably narrowly beating Zen 5 X3D, but unlikely to beat Zen 6 X3D. At least as of now, that's what I would guess. And then these should also give you 20% more single threading and 23% more multi-threading when it's 8 plus 16 versus 8 plus 16. Now, for the flagship with 52 cores, that should get 80% more multi-threading than Arrow Lake right now that has only 24 cores. And this is exciting. This is also higher than what has been rumored. What I will say, too, is that rumor of you remember, Dan, the plus 10% single threading and the plus 60% multi-threading? I have been told by my contacts that for once it seems the marketing people at Intel to their OEM partners are not over promising the performance.
That's good.
That's what I've been told, and that's why you see this discrepancy. What they're telling their partners right now is the minimum performance uplift, and from what I'm seeing, it should be higher than that. But what does this all mean? Well, if we take those numbers, then that means that the 36 megabyte standard variants should beat Zen 5, but not Zen 5 with Vcache and gaming. And even Zen 6 standard can probably beat standard Nova Lake pretty handily as well at most things. However, the big last level cache Halo SKU will almost certainly beat standard Zen 6 or be comparable, but then probably not beat the top Vcache variant of Zen 6. And this... there's a lot of info in this leak. Is where we get to one final thing here, a wild card. There is something called APO Plus, or actually, I'm not allowed to say what it's really called, but I'm going to call it APO Plus, that is attempting to give Nova Lake, above what I just said, another 15 to 25% gaming performance uplift. The way they would want to do this is by patching game executables to replace older instruction sets with newer ones. And they're working with developers right now to try to get them to reprogram their games to be optimized for Nova Lake. But a lot of the developers don't want to. If they have a game that's working, they don't want to potentially break it. And this is the weird thing. I was directly told that Intel's considering providing some software package where you can one-click overwrite your games.exes without the developer's consent or actions to boost that performance. Yes, massive DRM, breaking the game, or just game bug concerns. But this is something I'm told Intel is considering doing, because if you were to do that, I could see top Nova Lake trading blows with top Zen 6 X3D in a handful of games that they've optimized, maybe. And they probably want to be able to have that on their marketing slides, and they're going to do anything to at least get a few of the most popular games performing similar to AMD's top one, or they're just going to try to get there.
And final thing, you said top Zen 6, right?
Yeah.
Just okay.
Yeah. So final thing here, two more things. They are working on a Strix Halo and Medusa Halo competitor. There is an 8+16 model with 512 celestial execution units. For reference, I believe... Let me see here. I just want to make sure I don't get 160. To put that in reference, the B580 has 160 execution units. They're looking to go to 512 celestial ones in the flagship. I don't know. I guess it's called Nova Lake AX, but this is the Strix Halo competitor. I could actually see that being competitive with Medusa Halo and integrated graphics from what I've heard.
Sure.
Assuming the drivers work. So that's exciting. And there's also a little Halo, a 4+8 model with 256 execution units. Again, this would still probably be something that could maybe be competitive with Strix Halo. But anyway, so that's fun. And LGA 1954. I know it sucks that you have to upgrade to that to get Nova Lake, but apparently it is planned to support Razor Lake, Titan Lake, and exclusive from Moore's Law Z, something called Hammer Lake as well. 4 generations, meaning at least 4 years, maybe 6 years of support for their new platform. Caveat as always, they wanted to do Meteor Lake, Arrow Lake Refresh, or Panther Lake for the current one, and that didn't happen. So maybe they'll screw this up too. But this seems different to me. This seems like they really do want to be competitive with AMD and platform longevity, and that is exciting. All right, Dan, quite a write-up, but that was a lot of information. What do you think about Nova Lake, the new platform, their Halo competitor, Hammer Lake, everything?
Obviously, I think it's all good news, like especially since that they're trying to support something for 4 generations, although we'll see how that stands. I just hope Intel's getting to a point where they're actually lining up what's in their lineup is actually going to come out in the form that they think it is, because that's been, to me, the big thing with Intel in this day and age is a lot of uncertainty with what comes out of them or what they're working on, what comes to desktop, what ends up getting axed from desktop, etc. So 4 generations, that's great. Even if that becomes 3, that's fine. I think the what is it BLLC dies. That if that Ultra 7 gets great gaming performance, that could be a big new flagship for gaming. If the price is right, and I think that's where, even if this turns out like in the ideal version of it, AMD could still have an edge. Is if those BLLC variants or versions of Nova Lake are cheap enough to compete with like the 1 CCD models of AMD's or of like Zen 6, because that's where I could see this being or AMD still having an advantage. Is how maybe Intel, if APO Plus works as well as they want it to, has a slight edge with their top gaming CPU. Well, if the 1 CCD X3D model of AMD
But
of
same
Zen
with
6
Intel,
is out.
Dan. They have BBLC in one
True.
CC. No, this isn't. This is a complete change in strategy. They are using big last level cache with 1 CCD in the middle, just like AMD now.
Yeah, I mean, so if that ends up just being a more AMD like approach, yeah, maybe they can actually just execute and come out with a gaming flagship like this is the best or second best, or they're trading blows for, I don't know, hopefully $500 or something.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like multi-threading, it just to me seems like there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I don't really see their approach seems more AMD like. And again, I need to remind everybody, Zen 6 is targeting 7 gigahertz or higher. So like if you have a 12 core 1 CCD in the middle of the Zen 6 lineup, keep in mind that could be 12 cores, all of them at the same time boosting above 6 gigahertz. And if that's going against an 8 plus 16 i7, I mean, that 6 gigahertz, 24 versus 24 threads, AMD boosting 10, 20% higher. I think their multi-threading across the stack is maybe actually going to be pretty similar this time, except at the very bottom where, yes, the i5 will have a multi-threading boost, I'm assuming against whatever 8 or 10 core AMD is selling for $300. Sure. I don't think AMD cares, though, because I think AMD has calculated correctly, actually, that no one gives a shit about having 12 cores or more at $300. They just want good IPC and gaming performance. But you know, if Intel has a big last level cache 8 plus, maybe cut down a little 8+8 model for 350, like that could be in like an interesting place where I still would think like a 10600 X3D is going to win gaming for the price over, but you could see at the margins Intel is going to be much more competitive across the stack in the middle. Multi-threading, you know, is going to be fine. It's really at the very, very top where I would worry that a, you know, whatever it's called, 10950 X3D with 24 cores at 7 gigahertz and dual V-cache CCDs, I would still suggest that sounds to me like that's going to be the performance king.
Yeah, and I could see like multi-threading more becoming a wash between the two, but maybe in like mixed threaded apps, AMD still pulls ahead a lot of the time with those big cores that are all able to clock so high.
Yeah, especially, like, we don't know yet. I mean, especially if the way Zen 6 works, it's like, you have a 12 core where all 12 cores are like at 6.5 gigahertz. Again, I'm not saying that's how high they're going to go, guys. But let's say pie in the sky, that's what they achieve. You have 12 cores at 6.5 gigahertz. But then, I mean, what does that mean? Can 8 cores hit 6.9? Can 6 cores at once get above 7 gigahertz? I mean, that's where in mixed threading, they might trounce Nova Lake. But I don't know. In a lot of applications, it's interesting to note that there's a difference, not just in gaming performance between the big last level cache variants and the standard cache variants, but multi-threading performance goes up 10-15%, meaning that, I don't know, in mixed applications, Nova Lake might be fantastic as well. True. Again, if Nova Lake with 2 CCDs and extra cache on both is getting higher multi-threading, that again is further evidence to me that AMD may have been full of crap and they told us you want to get a benefit to both of them. A thing I want to bring up, because I want to get ahead of this, and certainly I actually knew a lot of this information for, I don't know, a while. And I think correctly prioritized leaking Xbox, PlayStation, RDNA 5 things. I thought that was far more interesting. We get far more clicks. I was correct. But
sure, yeah.
You know, another part of it was I sometimes am reluctant to do Intel leaks because not only are they not as popular, and they're not. It's not because of my channel.
Well, there's just less confidence about them.
There's less
confidence.
confidence. Yeah, it's like this channel was built on Intel leaks, and unfortunately, a lot of them just didn't pan out very well. Because again, I don't think Intel planned to have Arrow Lake lose to Raptor Lake. I mean, you can say I made stuff up if you want, but is your argument really that that's what Intel wanted to achieve?
That was their 5-year
their
plan.
goal. The whole
That's why Pat Gelsinger is no longer CEO of Intel.
Exactly, and then Intel fired Pat Gelsinger, so that tells you they just fell short of what I was told they would achieve. And because of that, I'm like, well, I don't know if I care that much. But as I started finishing the notes for the video, I became more and more excited because I think I can directly answer this question here of why should we be excited about Nova Lake? Why should there be any optimism for this? How do you know that it's not going to be like Arrow Lake? Well, I'll tell you what. I can't tell you it's going to be as good as they want it to be. I can't promise you that. What I can tell you, though, is when I say these performance numbers, some of these were early real games were benchmarked. I can't tell you which games. Let's leave it at that. So this wasn't them like, ooh, we calculate in the future. Like they're very real games. I'm trying to remember, like, what game could I say? Like The Witcher 3. I can say that because that wasn't one of them. So I'm not giving any source away. But like The Witcher 3, and they're like, it's performing 45% better. Something like that. Like, so this seems more concrete this time. But in addition to that, and this is something you've said over and over, Dan, is what would we look for to have confidence in Intel? It's them acting in a way that's different from before. Yeah. And they're sandbagging, if anything, to their OEMs. They're under promising to over deliver. They never used to do that. Number one. Number two, they are actually planning to do like 4 generations on a socket. Now you can say they plan to do Meteor Lake and Arrow Lake and Panther Lake on LGA 1851, and that never happened. Yeah, but like back then I heard it was like a maybe for Meteor Lake. Hopefully we'll get an Arrow Lake refresh, or probably we will. And hopefully we'll get a Panther Lake. Like it was always like maybe Nova Lake could make it to that one. I don't know. It was always like maybe 3 gens. We hope at least 2. This time they're like 4. We're doing 4. So even if something goes wrong, I'd be surprised if it wasn't 3. And again, that tells me Intel's acting differently, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, especially if, to me, that means that the teams are, to an extent, know what each other are doing at this point. Because to me, that's part of like what it sounded like was Intel's teams were just all over the place, and that seems to be part of why they were switching platforms every half generation or what. Like it was getting crazy.
Yeah. So, and one more thing, I saw people online. The word we like to use ever since whatever his name was at AMD said it, consternation online about DDR5. And people like, that doesn't make sense. And then in the next breath, they would say DDR6 should be ready 2027 or 2028. Yeah, motherfucker, this is launching in 2026. Like, I don't understand this discrepancy. Like, sorry, I get mad sometimes, people, but because it's like, right, this is 2026. If theoretically DDR6 is going to be ready, like, I guess maybe in Venice next year, that's whatever. Like, it's not really going to be fully ready and a reasonable price until 2027 or 2028. And I believe Razor Lake will also use DDR5 at least. I don't know, guys. I think you're talking about years of it really not being ready. And there's nothing stopping them from eventually having a DDR6, DDR5 hybrid chipset that comes with like Titan Lake or something. So do I think they'll need that? Or do I know that they'll need that? No, I don't know. I think DDR5 is actually, again, a lot of updates coming soon. I think DDR5 is going to be around in the latest architectures for years to come. And even if there's an option for DDR6 eventually, I think Intel can just let you have an option for both, like has happened before. Like there's no need to do DDR5 forever on this platform. So I wouldn't take that to mean, I mean, look, Nova Lake's launching next year. DDR6 really wouldn't have been ready. So it had to use it. I think Razor Lake will also use DDR5. And by the time that's out, DDR6 you still won't want to buy. It'll be way too expensive. So by the time it would need it, I think we'll be on Titan or Hammer Lake. And if there's one gen or two that uses DDR5 or gives you the option of both, that's fine. So did Alder Lake and Raptor Lake. There's no need to do that the whole gen. That's stupid.
Or the whole life of the platform, you mean?
Yeah, like they ended up doing with Raptor Lake and Alder Lake, where you can still put a 14th gen with DDR4 and just take a hatchet to its performance in some games. Like there's no need to do that from the start. DDR5 now, and they can add a platform that has DDR6 support whenever they need to do that. All right. Anyways, let's move on to some questions here about Nova Lake. Falto writes in and says, from your knowledge and insights, why exactly did Intel cancel Royal Core? Was it too expensive? It just baffles me that Intel missed out on like doubling IPC, so they'd be behind AMD for years. So two reasons. Number one, Pat didn't want to fund all of the R&D required to finish a complete re-architecting of Intel's cores. So that they could focus on AI, and then a year later said we lost the AI race. So, Pat screwed up, honestly, is my opinion. But number two, look, there's a large faction inside Intel that thought they should just go for 10 to 20% IPC increases every couple of years with evolutions of the cores and better platforms, and not try to, reinvent the wheel. If they catch up to AMD with Nova Lake, I'll go, I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's working. If Zen 7 crushes Razor Lake by 30%, I'll go, they probably needed Royal Core. But that's why. And honestly, at this point, I don't know that they have the money to redo it. Frankly, well, AMD managed to eventually with Zen, so I don't know. Eventually, they're going to need to.
Yeah, I mean, they'll need to move on at some point, but I think Intel needs to get set on a course and go with it for a while, because they seem to be a really inefficient behemoth that is working on too many things.
Yeah. Dead AI writes in and says, only big question after your Nova Lake video that I have is, how expensive will the Nova Lake top configuration be? Also, if it's using that much silicon, it better be significantly faster than Zen 6. We'll see. I mean, maybe it'll win. I don't know. But from where I'm sitting, it sounds like it'll just be competitive if they're lucky. But I'm afraid we have an uber expensive CPU that AMD could just undercut on price. That would be no good for Intel. Yeah, well, let's wait until we see the last decisions for like Zen 6 as well, because that's using N2X.
And do we know how big they will be at this point, or Nova Lake will be? I mean,
I could probably ask someone like tomorrow. I mean, it's not a small die.
Okay.
It's going to be big and it's going to be expensive, but yeah, it's going to be expensive. I mean, that's what it is. That's all there is to it. Until we see the final decisions AMD makes with Zen 6, though, I don't know how disparate the cost competitiveness will be. And it's worth remembering that the i5 tier is one CCD without a ton of cache. That will probably be somewhat cost competitive with AMD at that tier anyways. And it's really at the top where they'll have an issue. But will they be able to charge $700 for this? Probably, and I bet that's enough margin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Novocaine Zero writes and says, hi there. In the Nova Lake video, you said that APO Plus will try making devs use newer instruction sets in the EXE for a performance boost. Why couldn't AMD do this as well? They could. That's something that just was cut for time from the video that I'm probably going to have to clarify a lot moving forward. Is I asked someone at Intel, couldn't AMD do this as well? And they said, sure. So I honestly, guys, I think this would be a short-term win for Intel if APO allows them to do this. Long-term, I think Zen 6 will just probably win gaming if AMD decides to fight fire with fire. And I think this could be a smart access memory situation where they could have done this a long time ago, but Intel, unlike AMD this time, was like, why aren't we doing this? We could get 20% more performance if we just tell devs to frickin' patch their game.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just as much as leads to just devs patching their games and being smarter with software, great. I do hope this doesn't lead to some annoying arms race where both of them are hacking the exe files of games without the devs' permissions and breaking them to some extent, because that could lead to a very annoying period of PC gaming if they both try to do something like that and it doesn't work well. Because
smart access memory was like completely frictionless, it seemed to implement.
Yeah, if it's like that, say I'm sure.
But I think at a minimum, if Intel goes forward with this, you'll see AMD retaliate with something.
Sure.
Gentech writes in, hi Tom, I was thinking recently that it's odd how tame Intel was when they marketed their 12th gen and onward CPUs. You'd think they'd have some kind of general consumer marketing campaign with a slogan like, how many cores does your PC have? And any computer with less than 10 cores is yesterday's news. Well, not acknowledging their P and E core differences, there wasn't anything of that sort. Why didn't they acknowledge the differences if they weren't going to market how many cores they had? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't because of the ads, and no one likes trying to get general consumers except Apple and big laptop makers. Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to skip ahead here and just get to the answer. I mean, I don't know. Intel's marketing's been terrible forever. I'm not even sure I agree that they should have done what this person's saying, but I think you would agree with me, wouldn't you, Dan, of like, I don't know why Intel doesn't do a lot of things with their marketing.
Yeah, I mean, Intel's been bad at marketing since the i9 has been a thing, I would say. Like, they were in a really good spot when they had the i3, i5, i7 marketing, and I don't know what they've been doing since then.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to move to all of these cores like they have, I agree. You would definitely think that you would market how many cores you have versus AMD. But I will say this, they kind of missed their chance to have the perfect time to do it, to be fair. Alder Lake came out and it was 8+8. So what are they going to do? We have 16 cores like AMD. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then Raptor Lake goes to 24 cores. What are they going to do? Intel's 24 cores tie AMD's 16. Doesn't that make your stuff look crappy? Now, if Raptor Lake would have came out at the same time as Zen 3, they could have gone, look how many cores we have. You want more cores. But that would have been because their little cores wouldn't have been that much weaker than AMD's big cores. But there was never a perfect time like where they like either they had the same amount of cores as AMD, so who cares with Alder Lake, or they had 24 cores and they lost or tied, and so you're getting less for more for less. I mean, you're getting less with more. Like, what's the big marketing push?
Yeah, and I think the E-cores lost a lot of steam with with Alder Lake, even where like a lot of the reviews at least were focused around how it didn't seem like the E-cores did all that much for a lot of people, and it takes a while for it to get out from under that reputation. And I mean, they have to with Nova Lake, with how hard they're pushing into E-cores this time around. But, that's what, 4 generations later?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's your answers. All right. Let us now move on to story number 5. President Trump of the United States demands highly conflicted Intel CEO resign over China ties. Starting with a quote from Reuters before moving on to the write-up. U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday demanded the immediate resignation of new Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan, calling him highly conflicted due to his ties to Chinese firms and raising doubts about plans to turn around the struggling American chip icon. Reuters reported exclusively in April that Tan invested at least $200 million in hundreds of Chinese advanced manufacturing and chip firms, some of which were linked to the Chinese military. Well, what chips aren't linked to the Chinese military at this point? But anyways, we really do try to stay away from politics when we can at Moore's Law is Dead, but sometimes politics won't stay away from us in more than one way. Let's start with the allegations against Lip-Bu Tan. He and his VC company did, for example, invest in NSMIC, of course, silicon company in China, at its start in 2001. Lip-Bu seems to have cut ties, though, in 2018, long before he became CEO. It does not seem different from many of Tan's VC investments. He was on the board of a lot of companies. And let's be honest, show us a person with a long track record in any industry, one with experience running top companies or VC firms, who hasn't invested in the PRC in the 2000s. And actually, let me add on this. Carmen Cry didn't have this in the write-up. Then what about Tim Apple? Tim Cook built modern computing manufacturing in China. I forgot the name of it. There's a good book out recently that goes through how this thing of like Apple building up the Chinese manufacturing bases, why the American ones and others are falling apart right now. It's all because of Tim Cook's initiative to build up all these suppliers. In fact, I believe Tim Cook encouraged Chinese companies and stuff to like have tons of diverse sources and build up tons of.
Sorry, is the book Apple in China? That's the book that I'm seeing come up when I look this up. So
yeah, what's the
plug? I suppose.
What's the subline?
The capture of the world's greatest company.
Yes, that's the. And let me look at the cover of it because then I'll probably.
It's an apple with a dragon on it. Okay.
Yep.
Just thought I would figure it out. Find the book to soft plug it.
Yeah, I mean, this book goes into the fact that not only did Apple build up China's manufacturing base, but it even encouraged it to be able to be used by other Chinese companies because they knew there would be ups and downs in the market. And they didn't, like if Apple didn't buy as many iPhones one year, they didn't want their suppliers in China to go out of business. So they even told them to work with other companies. This is where BYD's success comes from. This is where all of these Chinese companies copied Apple, and Apple told them to copy them. So I have to throw this into the right. I mean, that's who built modern Chinese manufacturing. Apple. We can thank Apple for the competition we're getting from China now. Anyways, continuing at the write-up, though. Now let's discuss the more likely reason for Trump's tweet. Since its posting, very strong and numerous rumors have emerged about a power struggle at Intel. Yay, another one. This is supposedly between Liputan, who wants to give Intel fabs a chance, wants to try and save Intel as a whole as well, and Frank Yeary, a long-term board member and now chair of the board. Yeary's preferred plan is to sell off the fabs, possibly to a joint venture between Intel and TSMC. We reported on rumors about such JV deal earlier this year in Broken Silicon, by the way, and it seems TSMC and Yeary discussed this idea with Trump. So what to say here is Tan compromised? Well, we have not seen good evidence for this. Is this just a corporate power play with Yearly asking Trump to put out a tweet? Who's to say, but that's what it seems like to us right now. What we do know, though, for certain, is this is not good for Intel. Dan, thoughts?
I mean, it's interesting to. It's a little interesting to me is if the whole this being an extension of a power struggle between Yeary and Liputan is the case. I think it's a bit ironic as this sounds to me like it could almost weaken the U.S.'s position as a semiconductor manufacturer if, this ends up empowering TSMC more in the United States with, less corporate power for semiconductors in the U.S. But
I shouldn't laugh, by the way, to those watching this, not listening, but I can't help. It's like, yeah, so let's be very clear. What's being proposed, Liputan, look, he's going to have to make hard decisions. Parts of Intel are going to have to be sold off. But it seems like he's the side that wants to try to make Intel be recognizable as the same company in 20 years. Mm-hmm. Not like what happened to IBM, where it still exists, but it's a completely different company from what it was. What Trump is proposing is something that would gut Intel and American manufacturing further, which if you look at the recent job reports, what's going down? American manufacturing. So I nothing else to say here, but it seems like someone's, using the president to do a power play. And let's be very clear.
That would never happen.
That would never happen. Certainly not, Dan. But if this goes down and Yearly takes over, you're going to see the further hollowing out of American manufacturing, the strengthening of China and Taiwan further. And this is just not something Intel needs right now at the cusp of maybe launching something awesome like Nova Lake.
Yeah, and we'll see. Maybe Intel's fabs are flailing and they do need to be sold off. But I don't know. I think from what I'm seeing right now, Liputan is trying to keep a struggling giant alive by getting rid of some of the fat on the company. But I think the fabs are very much a part of Intel's DNA, so selling them off would be at least a massive transformation of the company and possibly bad for pretty bad for U.S. manufacturing.
And again, if you want to blame a Silicon Valley CEO for propping up China, if you see China as America's enemy, I'm not even saying I do, look no further than Tim Cook. You can thank all of the issues Detroit's having against BYD and all of that on Tim Cook. So just do your research, people. All right. Well, Dan, I don't know about you, but do you need to hire a new CEO? Because if you do, you might want to do so with ZipRecruiter. Finding great candidates to hire can be like trying to find an i9 13900K that hasn't burned a house down. You get too many resumes and not enough candidates with the right skills or experience. But not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/work. If you check it out, you'll find that ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies top talent for your roles quickly. You'll see immediately after you post a job that ZipRecruiter's powerful matchmaking technology starts showing you qualified people. And also, it lets you connect with top candidates as soon as possible. With a pre-written invite to apply message, you personally reach out to your favorite candidates and encourage them to apply sooner. So ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, that needle in the haystack or that still working i9 13900K in 2025. Seriously, though, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get quality candidates within the first day. Try it for free. And by doing so, through the link in the description, again, it's free. You'll be helping out Moore's Law is Dead. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/work. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire a new Intel CEO. All right. Let us continue the money talk with story number 6. AMD Q2 earnings reported from AMD. We delivered strong revenue growth in the second quarter, led by record server and PC processor sales, said Dr. Lisa Su, AMD chair and CEO. We are seeing robust demand across our computing AI product portfolio, and we're all well positioned to deliver significant growth in the second half of the year, driven by the ramp of our AMD Instinct MI350 series accelerators and ongoing EPYC and Ryzen processor share gains. We achieved 32% year-over-year revenue growth and generated record free cash flow this quarter, reflecting our disciplined execution, said John Hu, AMD EVP, CFO, and Treasurer. Now, let's switch gears to another corporate topic with this one that's much happier too with AMD, as they announced their Q2 2025 earnings. Their record earnings. Yep, another record with $7.7 billion in revenue. Client segment was especially strong, with CPU revenue growing by 66%. 66%. It's people saying, when are we going to get AMD laptops? They're here. And their gaming segment, GPU and consoles, finally is showing signs of recovery by almost 2 times over. The one negative is data center margin, which went negative. AMD claims that is entirely due to export controls. They probably say that either way, with them taking an $800 million hit from inventory charges due to the MI308, the CDNA version meant for China. Yeah, this has been causing tons of headaches for them, not being cleared for export. Other than that, it's sunny days over at AMD. And that is particularly interesting. We've seen a lot of reports coming out as well about record RADEON market share in like South Korea, Germany. I mean, RADEON's doing very well, laptops doing well, and people are buying more consoles this year. So what do you think, Dan?
I mean, not too much. Obviously, this points to the whole, yes, the their new graphics cards are indeed doing well. Their gaming segment and GPUs are indeed doing well, people. If there's any doubt about that the I don't know, Steam survey continuously makes people shed doubt on.
Yeah, please don't send me a link to some Steam survey thing, people.
Although I did get the Steam survey today, Tom.
You did.
I did get it.
Finally asked an AMD owner.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't rehash our problems with it. I'll just remind everybody again that anyone I ask behind the scenes about the Steam survey that seems really in the know about market share and stuff says, look, NVIDIA has way more market share than Radeon, but the Steam survey is absolute bullshit. So you can't have gaming revenue go up this much with record sales in Germany and South Korea and everyone who's reporting it, do it yourself and go, Radeon's about to be canceled. One thing I would add to this that I think is funny to see is record gaming, well, not record maybe, but like a massive improvement in gaming revenue right around when it seems like AMD fully has greenlit big RDNA 5. I just think that's worth pointing out. Now, they probably do that for AI no matter what, but seeing them dip their toes into giving us gaming versions of it, I think tells us something next to these earnings as well. Magnetic Manuel writes in and says, in AMD's quarterly earnings this week, they highlighted for the second quarter in a row that desktop CPUs and GPUs were notable contributors to profits, even though Wall Street only cares about AI data center sales. Last quarter, Lisa Su specifically mentioned as well how a positive 9070 launch relative to low profit helped them sell attached CPUs at a high profit. In other words, launching with good supply and fair pricing helped them make more money versus the classic missed opportunity Radeon launch. Have you seen any more signs of AMD's top leadership sharpening focus on consumer products instead of just data center amid Intel's current weakness? P.S. Lisa mistakenly said 9600 XT instead of 9060 XT on the call. Not even their CEO can figure out what Radeon is doing with branding.
Well, you just switch the zero and the significant figure around, Tom.
But yeah, I mean, I just see, there's going to be 2 PlayStations, at least, maybe 3 with a PS6 Pro next gen. They're still doing some form of an Xbox, but that shares with Radeon graphics with AD2 and desktop. And I mean, from what I'm seeing, with Zen 6 and I guess I'll say hint here Zen 7 APUs. Oh boy, are we going to have options in the next few generations of laptop products. So all I can say is they're doing more, and they wouldn't be doing that unless they thought it would work out. And, I guess I could also add, seeing that RDNA 5 is unfortunately a late 2027 launch instead of a late 2026 or early 2027 launch. I think AMD's learning, just release it when it's ready. Don't rush your employees. Do a good job. And that's what you want to do. And I think that's what we're seeing here as well.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, their APUs are, I think, going to be not becoming. They're an incredibly important part of their market share. So their graphics needs to be good to some extent. Like, they're going to keep developing it.
But we're talking about gaming stuff. Let us move on then to a firmly gaming subject with story number 7. Early PlayStation 6 specs and capabilities leaked. Did you hear someone leak that, Dan? I did.
Who did that?
I don't know. Been seeing a lot of talk about this on websites. Anyways, here's the write-up. Since last news episode of Broken Silicon, we have put the cherry on top of our RDNA 5 and APU leaks. As we release those, we receive new information, as often happens, and thanks to it, we were able to confirm plans for the PlayStation 6, both editions of it too. That's right. There will be 2 consoles, a standard home one and a handheld. Now, this isn't new information from tons of leaks that we've been putting up for years now, but now we can say exactly what each of these will be, or close enough, that is. The good news is Sony is focusing on price this time as well. With 4K 120 almost saturated by the PS5 Pro, the new home console aims to finish that saturation and not charge you any more than they think they need to, with some massive power-hungry chip that costs $1,000. Instead, the Orion SoC, Orion, the code name for the PlayStation 6 home console, looks to be a more modest APU with 8 Zen 6 or newer cores and more than 40 compute units, but not like 100 of them. The documents we have, admittedly, that we've shared in the leak are older, so some details may have changed from then. They have. But the exact memory and cache configurations, performance, all of that, roughly speaking, it's pretty much what's already been leaked, is what should be in the final PlayStation 6. So you see, Sony and AMD are looking for somewhere around, 2.5 to 3 times the raster performance for the PS6 over the PS5. But the ray tracing performance, as leaked in a recent podcast with James Pryor, should be 5 to 10 times higher. And all of this will be done in a small chip with a low 160 watt TDP, or maybe even lower. So this won't cost as much probably to make as a PS5 Pro. And so if the PS5 Pro was a test of whether people will accept higher prices for consoles, either way, it seems Sony does not want to keep going in that direction. Now, in addition to that, there's the Canis SoC. Canis, the code name for the PS6 handheld. Canis, by the way, the dog of Orion in Constellations. With a 15 watt TDP target, this 4-core Zen 6 CPU, 4 Zen 6C cores, I should say, and with 12 to 20 RDNA 5 compute units, depending on what Sony goes with in the end. This will be in a much, much, much smaller form factor. Probably not quite as small as the Switch, but possibly around there, and not as large as the comically huge ROG Xbox Ally products. Performance is expected to fall to around 50% of the PS5, maybe a tad better than that in raw raster, but with much, much better ray tracing, maybe double the ray tracing performance of the PS5 in this handheld SoC. So that's more than enough for a handheld, especially considering it'll usually be running lower resolutions. But once you consider the addition of FSR4 and the latest versions of FSR4 in 2027, unlike what we get now in the base PS5, we actually think it could give you overall raster image quality that's pretty similar to the current gen console. Excitingly as well, on the platform diagram that I had access to, I saw a USB-C port with video capabilities mentioned, meaning that the PS6 handheld could indeed get a docked mode eventually, or at least at a minimum, plug into your TV and be just a cheap home console. Overall, the two chips together point to a more PS4 strategy than a PS3 or PS5 strategy. With the performance target saturated, Sony seems to look to get PS4 gamers in the PlayStation ecosystem by offering them a cheap upgrade if they skipped the PS5. Probably the biggest leak out of this channel in about a year. What do you think, Dan?
I mean, I'm very excited to see how these two do, and I'm very excited to see the Sony put out another handheld again. Honestly, for me, I don't know if I'm going to get either of these at launch, but we'll see. I'm pretty happy with the PS5 Pro right now, and I don't know if this will offer a big enough upgrade initially for me to want to get an upgrade immediately. And the mobile thing is interesting, but I don't know how much I need it. But I don't know. This two console strategy at the same time is cool, and I think that targeting a 1080p and 4K console kind of just makes sense and is really all they'll need for, I think, a while. Like, I don't know how many people you're going to see going above 4K right now, and hell, I don't know how many people even really want to go above 1080p. I think that's part of the reticence of why a lot of people never really took the leap to the PS5 from the PS4.
Yeah, and it's just a good time to do this. I mean, look, there's a decent chance, some people say we're already in one, but at a minimum, we could be in a recession when this launches.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sony wants to avoid doing what they did with the PS3, where they're like, here's the super expensive console, boom, market crashes. And the PS4 launched at the tail end of that great recession, and it did fantastic. I think Sony realizes that like going even more than the PS5 Pro doesn't really make any sense. Again, the PS5 Pro, I just played Battlefield 6 beta on it, and I'm like, oh, should I get this or the version that can use my 4090 just because of how easy it is to use?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that tells you the image quality is almost there. All they need is more ray tracing, and it's just sand down the rough
it's at a point
edges.
where you'd want it to be.
And there will be a lot of people that will say, oh, there's 144 hertz TVs now. They've announced 165 hertz. Guys, most people don't even have above 60 hertz.
I don't
We're
think...
PC gamers.
I don't
I
think,
have a 240 hertz, but most people don't.
Okay, I don't remember what the exact number is, but it's like, what, like a relatively small fraction of people even still today are playing on 4K monitors right now, or TVs. What do you think is the dividing line? Like, okay, I'm still playing on a 1080p 60 hertz monitor. All right, 165 hertz. That's really what was stopping me versus 120. Like, no, that describes almost no one. That describes someone who maybe gets, like, they've been gaming on a 1080p TV or monitor for years and it breaks and they're like, fine, fuck it, I'll get the 4K 165 hertz. That's
the 420
some
hertz
people,
one I have.
Not a ton. That's some people.
Just because if I'm going to do this every 5 to 10 years, I might as well get whatever the best is on the market. Yeah. And so I think this strategy makes a ton of sense. We just put out a die shrink that goes over RDNA 5 questions, PS6 questions, Magnus questions. I confirm release dates and prices. I will plug that now, by the way. Like, that just came out. You can join the Patreon at the lowest tier. And by the way, I'm announcing this now. I have put a new lowest tier on the Patreon that will get you access to asking guest questions and then a die shrink drop once a month. And I decided to include the latest die shrink as well, as kind of a welcome to that. So if you only have $1 or $1.25 and a few pennies, which is what it costs to get into that lowest tier, join that and you will be able to see the full conversation that we used to make that cut down yield that came out right before this podcast. So I just wanted, but in that episode, I guess at a minimum, what I should say is, another thing about like the performance of this versus the next gen Xbox, and even against the Switch 2, is it is very clear that Nintendo went their own way after the Nintendo 64, or certainly after the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
And then now Xbox is going their own way, probably becoming a more like a PC offering thing. Whatever the performance is between the next gen Xbox and the next gen PlayStation, they're not as direct competitors anymore. The next gen Xbox might be powering 4K 240 hertz displays. It might need that extra performance. The PlayStation just needs to saturate 4K 120 and isn't worried about Xbox anymore.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would say, like your thing about who cares about with a performance here and there. If Mark Cerny probably did the math and was like, what's the exact little amount of performance that we need to hit to saturate 4K 120 with a ton more ray tracing? That's all the PS5 6 is trying to do. If you're a PC gamer with a 4090, that probably doesn't interest you that much. Cool. Then don't get it. But this is for the people, frankly, apparently just now, they are getting half of their revenue from PS5 a year versus the PS4 user base. Sony needs to find a way to get people to upgrade, and so they're going to have a lot cheaper offerings next gen.
Mm-hmm.
Techno writes in and says, as we've been getting a base console, Sun console, and Pro consoles for the last decade or so, at least since Xbox One and PS4, to some extent, you could argue too with PS3 and 360 and the Wii, so they came with several improvements in the final iterations. Do we think the PS6 handheld will stay in its base version, or do we think we will get a proper Pro handheld in like 2031 or something? I think it would probably be 2030 too, not 2030, 2030, comma TOO, if they were going to do it. But I doubt it. No, I don't think so. You agree, right?
Yeah, I don't see a reason.
Wouldn't you just shrink it?
Yeah,
and make
probably.
it cheaper? I think you just make the handheld cheaper. I don't think so. Mark Smith writes and it says, hi, Tom and Dan. Will Sony follow a similar launch cadence in the next generation with a Pro version of the PS6 launching towards the middle of the life cycle? Also, how likely will it be for Xbox to release another budget S-tier console on their newer architecture? Thank you. So I've seen no evidence that Xbox is going to have an S console yet. What I would say is the Magnus SoC that connects to the AT2 desktop chiplet. There's no reason they couldn't have like an AT3 or AT4 that they use for that. So it's totally plausible. At a minimum, I would think at this point it will launch after the normal one. But also, I feel like Xbox is going to slowly just move into PC. And if they are,
that's my feeling.
They only need one console.
Yeah, or as we talked about in that dashing too, and another podcast, like it just becomes a sticker or a button more and more.
Now, as for a PS6 Pro console, I don't know. It could make sense to me. Maybe they'll feel less of a need to do it if they have less competition directly from Xbox. Personally, I would like to just see the PS6 be a rapidly selling base for next-gen consoles. Like, they get everyone from PS4 to just switch over right away, and hopefully a lot from PS5. And then 6 years later have just a PS7, because PS6 fundamentally changes what you can do with ray tracing and AI. So I see it as like a budget base to build on with next generations. I would prefer, right when you say, get everyone on this, make this the standard, and then 6 years later, just do a PS7. But that is what I said kind of with the PS5, and that didn't happen. So could there be a Pro? I don't know, possibly. What I would suggest is Sony would probably wait for the first year of sales and then decide, or first few months of sales, and then decide if they're going to do a Pro or not.
Yeah, I guess to me, I see less of a need for a Pro version of this console. Like if the PS6 is already at a point of saturating 4K, I just don't see why you would need something that's like, I don't know, 50 to 2.5% to 2 times stronger than that, unless like, I don't know, 5K starts taking off or something. But like, I don't know. I would imagine 5K is going to be kind of an intermediary resolution anyways. And I don't know if you would be able to release a Pro version that truly utilizes like 8K or something. So yeah, I don't know.
Until they know if anyone's even going to buy 8K or if 4K 240 TVs take off, I wouldn't start it. And that's why I think they'll give it like half a year to a year and then go do. Because like what Sony did with the PS5 Pro is they're like, we're going to saturate 4K as best we can for a reasonable price compared to PC. I know it's more expensive. Mm-hmm. And we're also going to let devs crank up ray tracing on the Pro. And they had to like wait a year before they knew that they wanted to do that with the Pro or something. So, you know, I think, or they needed, by the time the PS5 was out is when they could start to make that decision, because it takes years to develop these consoles. So could there be a PS6 Pro? But like you're saying, like they kind of need to wait until just after the PS6 launch to even know where they would go next with it.
Yeah. I mean, because of its 240 hertz, I don't know.
Zen 7 and we're done.
Stronger
I don't know.
CPU, like what?
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah. They don't know yet. And remember, from what I heard, they almost didn't have a PS5 Pro. It came out later than it should have because they really were dragging their feet with it. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just GTA 6 and seeing that ray tracing was kind of becoming more popular. Probably seeing something like DLSS take off where they're like, oh, well, we could use that.
So if a Rockstar game is coming out 4 years after, we know a Pro is coming out.
No. But I just think Sony will look to see if there's a reason to have one. But and of course not. There will not be another Rockstar game for 50 years after GTA 6 probably.
The next Rockstar game will come out in 2048.
Dead AI writes in and says, since you've seen the details of Canis, do you think they could double the performance with something like a 3 to 4 times power budget? I'm assuming the handheld runs at some sane level of power, 10 to 20 watts. Yeah, it should probably 15 watts or less. Could Sony do a PS5 replacement for PS5 raster performance with the same mobile chip, but at 75 to 100 watt TDP? That would be PS5 performance, but much better RT. So I'm going to cut all this out. Dead, I think they're going to do it with Canis. Like, I've been thinking about this more and more and more, without divulging things I can't say yet. I think they're going to get Canis to like half to 2/3 the performance of PS5 base in raster, and then double the PS5 base in ray tracing. So you're already doing pretty good. You're getting to like almost PS5 Pro ray tracing. Almost, not quite. With a little worse than PS5 raster. And some games that will make it on average perform around it anyways. But then add FSR4. I think you just get PS5 performance overall. Like, I think it's going to be there at 15 watts, my dude. And the FSR4, to fully get there, the devs will need to patch it, to be fair. You'll need a patch to fully optimize to it. It won't be hard to patch it, but you'll have to do a patch. You know, there will be games that aren't patched where it just runs in like PS5 low power mode and, you know, overall performs a little worse than base PS5. I'm sure that will happen. But if the game is patched, I think they get you to PS5 performance while having something that they could put into a, you know, a little mini PC box and sell for $299. And I think they're just there already. And that's why I don't think there'll be a pro version of like Canis. I think they will just make that cheaper over time.
At a certain point, I think there's too many SKUs. Like if they make a PS TV 2 type thing with Canis, I imagine that wouldn't use much more, if any more.
Something like this little PC right here, maybe, but as strong as a PS5. I'm showing.
I imagine that wouldn't use much more than the handheld version, anyways, and I don't see a reason to overclock that to 75 watts and release another SKU for what, $380 or $400 or something. I don't know what that would even sell for.
And if his question is a more PC centric mentality to it, of like, when can we get this in a laptop? I mean, I think Zen 7 APUs are just going to be as strong as the base PS6.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if it'll be Canis, but it'll be something similar probably.
They'll be there. We're going to be there. We're going to be at a PS5 performance in ultra slim laptops by 2027 or so, maybe 28. We'll be there. We're just, again, we reiterate, half to 2/3 the raster of PS5, double the ray tracing of PS5, add FSR4. Sounds close enough to me that they're going to get there, just in 15 watts. Better, or to my memory, Peter? He said I should call him Peter.
Oh, right.
Peter, who likes to use a B instead of a P, writes and says, how much has Radeon benefited from RDNA being in consoles? The only games that come to mind with outstanding performance for team is the COD franchise. Yeah, those two run really well on AMD. And a few racing games. Other than that, what other wins have consoles generated for desktop Radeon? Devs paying any attention to Radeon whatsoever. I mean, let's be honest. Even though they might not be better optimized than NVIDIA, they have to have some level of optimization. I mean, AMD has like 10 to 20% of the dedicated graphics market, maybe less if you, depending on how you want to count laptop. But then I would count AMD integrated graphics. I don't really think that's fair to count. At a minimum, most gamers on PC use NVIDIA, so they need that console backing to even have the same level of optimization as NVIDIA, I'd say.
Oh, and I mean, just really going out, there's the chance that AMD, even beyond Radeon, wouldn't exist without the console market. Because the PS4 and Xbox One probably to some extent really injected a lot of cash into AMD that was not there in a starting to fail company.
Jamie Witters writes and says, I've been playing Death Stranding 2 on a PS5 Pro, and I'm constantly reminded of those console generations that had visual weaknesses in anisotropic filtering. I feel like solving this will be essential to making the most of PSSR and FSR4, especially if Sony wants to push for 4K options in games. I don't know if they do. What do we need from next-gen APUs to reach higher AF settings by default? They can do it. I reached out to a game developer, and he told me, honestly, the API for the PS4 sucked when it came to anisotropic filtering. And so, like, it'll probably just not be an issue with PS6. And there was just two things. A bad API for PS4, which some devs still build their games off of, just extrapolating from that, apparently. But also, number two, I don't know. Some developers just decide to give you ×2 or ×4 anisotropic filtering. I don't know why. Like, Like, I know I'm sure you know what I mean. On PC, 8 to 16 can sometimes have a performance hit, but like 4 to 8 is almost nothing always.
Yeah, I mean, and even going from 8 to 16, it's
I've
almost
noticed
a
in newer
negligible hit a
games
lot of the time.
there is a hit though.
Okay.
There wasn't in older games like Far Cry 3. But
maybe I should pay more attention to that, because a lot of the time I do just kind of turn on X16 without even thinking about it.
we have a 7900 XT X, right? Yeah, so you just
XTX.
turn everything up anyways. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's some early API issues, and otherwise, I don't know. They could turn it up in a lot of these games. I don't know, man. I don't know. All right. Now I want to move on to something here that was a last minute addition, but I think is something really fun. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while. And again, let me plug, join the Patreon, $1.28 now. You can get in and get access to this die shrink that was partially seen in a recent cut down yield that came out on Monday. In addition to that, I also talked about the 5 to 10x ray tracing uplift with James Pryor on a recent Broken Silicon. And it's something that I've just been kind of like talking to people behind the scenes about, and most devs agree with me. So something, that a lot of people are probably talking about when this podcast comes out that was in that die shrink episode, is that I did the math, and I'm like, I don't think people get it when I say 5 to 10x ray tracing. Again, watch that video, join the Patreon to see the full explanation. But long story short, I think when people hear PS6 has up to 10 times the ray tracing of the base PS5, they go, who cares? That's 10 times 0. The PS5 couldn't do ray tracing. That's wrong. It wasn't as bad as you think. It was much weaker than Lovelace or something, but not as bad as you think. If you extrapolate things out, 5 to 10 times the ray tracing with the raster that I've leaked should get the PS6 to like 90-70 raster, and then like above 50-80 ray tracing. Above. Okay? And there's going to be some people that go, I don't care about getting 90-70 performance. You're not getting 90-70 performance. You're getting arguably above 50-80 performance in the PS6, depending on the performance metric. And I think that's enough to have a lot of games do full path tracing. Now, I reached out to some developers over the weekend, and I was surprised. I'll go, is this true? This idea I have? And they're like, yeah, that would make sense. And I was told that if you program a AAA game to the metal for something that has ray tracing capabilities, like at least a 5080. One developer told me even a 5070 Ti would probably be enough for this. And if you build a game engine from the ground up for ray tracing, like the 4A Games has done with Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, which runs fantastic, even on RDNA 2 cards, by the way, I think, requiring ray tracing, you could have plenty of AAA games on PS6 do full path tracing. So I think, number one, let's just throw that out there, that I think PS6 games may be more notably better looking than PS5 was than PS4. Again, imagine not like these games that add ray tracing like a checkbox to make NVIDIA happy.
Yeah, they just fully path traced. Or
imagine games like Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, but built for the ground up for RDNA 5. I mean, you're going to get way, 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 way better ray tracing performance, to the point that I think PlayStation could do an RTX remix thing for PS3 titles. And this is where I go down the rabbit hole. No sources told me this, but this is a theory I want to propose to everybody today. Why didn't we get PS3 backwards compatibility with PS5? I had heard that there were emulators working on PS4. They just didn't work very well. Like only half of the games ran at reasonable frame rates. They didn't look any better than they did on PS3 as well, so they thought that was sad. But certainly if you could almost get it working on PS4, you could get it working on PS5. But therein lies an issue. The PS3, everyone forgets this, had pressure-sensitive buttons, meaning half of the exclusives need to have their controllers remapped, meaning you might as well have to port the game anyways. So Sony, I believe, and my recent PS6 leak was based on documentation from 2023, middle of 2023, so a year and a half before the PS5 Pro even launched. That's how far back they knew that the PS6 was going to have like 10 times the ray tracing of the PS5. If you know that all the way back then, and you know all the way back then as well that you're basically going to have to port a game just to get the PS3 game to work on PS5, why wouldn't you wait till PS6 where you can do really easy to do ports and turn on path tracing? And I have a suspicion that the reason we haven't gotten PS3 backwards compatibility yet is because, yes, Sony wants to resell you these games, but they kind of would have had to anyways, because they have to port them from PS3 for the controller. That reason alone. I think they're like, wait, PS6 can do path tracing. And we've seen the success for NVIDIA's marketing for RTX Remix, where a path tracing update to Half-Life 2 looks better than a lot of recent AAA games. Why don't we just wait to put like the Killzone 2, 3 Shadowfall bundle? Why don't we just wait for PS6? We'll just run it in 4K, turn on path tracing. It'll look better than PS5 games. And that's what I believe is going to happen. I have no source telling me this, but I have to imagine that Sony saw what NVIDIA was doing with RTX Remix. They saw that PS3 backwards compatibility was impossible without some work from the developers. And they said, wait till PS6. A major selling point of these consoles will be that you can get all of your PS3 games again, and they'll look better than PS5 games.
Yeah, I mean, I hope there's something there because, games just need to stop being isolated on PS3. Like, it's 2-decade-old hardware at this point. Something needs to give at some point. Like Sony, you've acquired an entire studio just to do ports. Like, make them put in the work. And if it's easy, maybe that means a relatively small amount of work to get each game running, and you can just get, I don't know how many it would be, like the top couple hundred or something games easily working with path tracing, or top 100 or whatever games working on the PS6 with I can't think of the studio name right now, but
Nixus or Bluepoint.
Yeah, probably Nixus. I wouldn't think Bluepoint, but I don't know. I don't know what Bluepoint's
They're becoming
doing.
a real boy.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I don't know this for a fact. Like, I guess Bill Maher would say, I just know it's true. But like, it's almost like Nixus is waiting to do this. It's almost like, and also like, step back from a business perspective. Sony's going to be around for decades. PlayStation they'll probably be on PlayStation 10 eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to port all your PS3 games if you think the right move is to port them, not have backwards compatibility? Do you really want to do that during the PS5 gen where it's like, oh boy, Folklore and 4K 60? Like, who really cares? When you can wait 5 years and then the basis will be 4K 120 Folklore fully path traced. And if someone's on PS7 or PS8, that game that was ported to PS6 will look much more modern than going back and buying the PS5 game. And if it was built from the ground up to do this with path tracing, I mean, it'll be easier to double enhance with the PS. Undoubtedly, when Sony wants to charge $10 each time for PS7 and PS8, I just think this makes so much sense. I mean, the more I think about it, I'm like, I know they have the emulator working, but they're not doing it. What is Nixus and Bluepoint up to?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think they're doing RTX Remix, but for PlayStation. And if they have a launch salvo of all of these, like every 2 months we're dropping Resistance, then Killzone, then Blood Siren, which I might actually finally play that series, like all of that stuff. You get that. Also, this has the benefit of, what if Killzone sells really well? They'll go, oh, maybe we should make a sequel. Blood Siren does.
Revival of Killzone, so.
Like that happened. Like, well, it wasn't whatever the fox is, the raccoon that robs people.
Sly Cooper.
I believe they did a remaster that sold well. Then they made another game. Like, I could see this happens. They have a pattern of doing this. They release the PlayStation Portal. They can't keep it in stock. They're like, oh, should do a handheld. Like,
yeah.
I think RTX Remix for the PlayStation 6 is a way to reward fans that never bought a PS5 who probably remember these old games. It's a way to make all of these games that get ported last much longer than if they're just, 4K kind of on PS5. And it allows you to do a lot of good market research as well. So I don't know. I'm convinced they're going to do this, even though I have literally no sources telling me. And if, by the way, Sony, if you're not going to do this, you can take my idea. You don't, I'm just like, this is common sense. But I just wanted to get that out there because I've been connecting a lot of dots behind the scenes while I'm working on the next PlayStation 6 update. And I just had like a eureka moment the other day. And I can't find anyone with an argument against it. So I'll take your silence as an agreement. Although you already said you agreed. So what am I doing? Bespoke exclamation point writes in and says, I don't understand why Microsoft is even bothering with Magnus. If it's going to be compatible with Steam and Epic PC, it needs to be off-the-shelf PC parts. But if it's tied to Xbox, it can't exactly be upgradable. So you're basically buying a pre-built PC that isn't upgradable? Makes sense. I don't know. I mean, I've gone into this a million times recently. I'll just use this as a chance to plug, I believe we talk about it in the cut down yield that came out a day before this podcast. And obviously, if you join the Patreon, you can access to a whole like 40-minute or longer, whatever it is, video where me and you talk about it. But at the end of the day, PlayStation sells more at this point than Xbox. Tying Xbox to a dedicated graphics card allows Xbox to get the same deal of contracts, like scale that PlayStation would get. And so it just makes a lot of sense. And AMD probably insisted they do it. All right. I am getting tired, and I know you are too, Dan. So let us just get to the wrap-ups here. All right. So these are the stories, of course, that we believe deserve a conversation, but we don't think need a whole 10-minute I'm falling asleep. These deserve mention, but do not need a whole 10 to 30-minute conversation. Wow. I've never shown my exhaustion more than... Yeah, I have. I've been way worse. There's a $1,000 laptop supposedly coming with Strix Halo. Don't have much to say. If that really is coming, cool. That will be the only laptop I recommend. I mean, I'm really skeptical it's not like the 16...
Or as long as it doesn't make a million compromises on it. But
yeah, I'm really skeptical it won't be like the 16 compute unit 6-core version for that much, and then $1,500 is the top one, but I don't know. And I believe another laptop manufacturer announced it as well, so I think this might be another Tom was right moment where I'm like, hey, Strix Halo costs a lot, at the moment, because it's in some premium Asus tablet or this super fancy over here HP laptop with a 3-year warranty and 64 gigs of RAM and all of this stuff. You give it 32 gigs of RAM, you give it a reasonable screen, you don't insist on a 3-year warranty with professional grade support. I mean, this uses professional drivers. Like, I think you get to a point where this thing costs the same as a 4060 laptop, and I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip over this. There's more evidence that AMD is taking market share in like South Korea like crazy. Like, they say like Nvidia still has like 24% of the South Korean market. It's like, dude, AMD was like 0% of the dedicated graphics market in South Korea until RDNA 4. So more evidence of that being very successful. Nvidia confirms end of game ready driver support for Maxwell and Pascal. Yeah, I mean, look, Pascal's almost a decade old. I think Pascal.
People love that architecture, though.
But at the end of the day, I don't know. It happens.
Yeah.
I saw this as well. Friend of the channel, Ancient Gameplays here, talking about a new FSR4 GPU profile manager to force FSR4 into more non-supported games. And supposedly cool. this new tool really does enable FSR4 to work without glitches in all 3.1 games. So
that's cool.
That's really cool. It'll be even cooler, by the way, if AMD finally gives us RDNA 3 and 3.5 support for FSR4. Intel's credit rating was slashed. It's now, I've seen a lot of course, man, it's notable news. I won't quite call it clickbait, but headlines like Intel AI generated Intel logo on fire, and Intel's one level above a junk rating. I'm actually going to defend Intel here. AMD went below where Intel is right now in rating, so for credit. So they may be one above a junk rating, but I don't know. You got to go down before you can go back up sometimes. Speaking of going down at Intel, though, Arc can't boot Battlefield 6, so there you go.
Good.
Another game where it's like, I'm glad you got 10% better price performance with Intel to not have FSR4 or DLSS and not be able to boot modern games half of the time. But just throwing this out there as a PSA, Arc, if it works in a professional app you use perfectly, who am I to tell you not to get it? Whatever. And if that's what it's going to be used for. And if it's like half the price of the equivalent to AMD or NVIDIA performance, sure. But if it's just 10, 20% cheaper for the same level of performance, it is not worth the headaches, my guys. I mean, live a little.
Live Moss as whatever that restaurant is. I'm also tired.
Isn't that Taco Bell?
I think that's Taco Bell.
Rapid fire. Bullethead writes in, Tom, here's an example of LLMs being used for gaming, courtesy of the XCOM 2 modding community. It adds support for external large language models to generate dialogue and responses during gameplay. This mod runs on a local server to interact with your selected AI model, allowing you to inject dynamic AI-generated text into the game. What it does, lets you type custom messages. Oh, that's cool. Capture AI responses, display them in the mission dialogue chat box, and use soldier biographies as character cards. Put everything that's not the name, class, whatever there, so you can get basic info for your soldiers much more quickly. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we're going to see. This is the thing we're not talking about PS6 and Xbox Magnus, where there's just going to be games where you can talk into your controller and tell an AI what to do and it'll know what you're saying. Like that's going to be the game changer. And again, maybe it'll be on PS5 Pro and they'll go, huh. Half a second later, they listen. And on PS5, it takes 10 seconds for them to hear you, to generate it. The frame rate plummets. Xbox Series S, it just crashes. I don't know. But that's the type of next gen feature that, I could see that happening. I will say this is a mod though, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more use of AI. I'm still concerned about the bubble.
Yeah, we'll see.
Compressed AI Blocks writes and says, Tom, you got any info on the ASRock plus X3D being stable? When my Raptor Lake CPU died, I instinctually read should have gotten in the first place, grabbed an ASRock 870 and 7600 to hold me over to Zen 6, and now I'm scared to get an X3D chip. So I'm just going to read what Carbon Cry wrote. He says, number one, the issue is on ASRock's side. Not much for AMD to do there, and even ASRock has admitted that themselves. ASRock fucked up the BIOS, apparently. So there's that. There are also fixed BIOSes, but who knows if they remedy the situation fully. 3, ASRock also alluded to warranty replacement programs, but again, nothing concrete. Wow, they still haven't solved that. I don't know, man. What I would say, and it sucks, is if you have that ASRock board, I'd probably wait to Zen 6, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
But me and Dan are falling asleep. I worked a full day again, preparing the Patreon for another upgrade. Again, please, there's a new tier. $1.28. It's for people that don't need to be in the Discord and talk to us a bunch, don't need tons of spamming, don't want to have tons of reader mails, and don't think they'll listen to every podcast. But I will give you a die shrink every month. And also, you can still submit guest questions occasionally. So it's that little bit of interaction, a little bit of bonus stuff. If you don't feel like you need to pay extra to get access to a Discord and tons of die shrinks, but you want to throw $1 our way every month, it is now there for you. So please check that out, everybody watching. And otherwise, subscribe to Moore's Law is Dead on YouTube, ring the bell button, comment down below, like the video, subscribe to Broken Silicon on your podcast app of choice on 10 mobile phones, and have them all auto download every week, and support our sponsors as well. Especially this week, very good sponsors, very easy to work with, ZipRecruiter and Micro Center. I show them some love when they're nice to us. These guys were nice to us. It's not saying that every other previous sponsor was terrible. That's not what I'm saying. But, show them some love. And Dan, I'm exhausted. I'm falling asleep. I know you are as well, and want to play 10 minutes of Battlefield before they won't let you. Although there will be another weekend. Any final words?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a good rest of your week.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carbon Cry and Carrie No Sugata as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the About/Support page. In the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie No Sugata as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and Jean-Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong, we love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guests questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels:
Brad Bedlin, Drita Foles, Z Jits, Daniel D, Deke, Nicholas Buckner, Aaron Close, Jan Rauner, Toka, Daniel Hyde, MJB1, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jerem Ferreira, Valko Malev, Compressed AI Blocks, Jensen Wang, Gregor Sacker, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Kalbuma, Evan Dingle, Shredbird, Semi Malas, The Boss Haas, Chrysantine, Tommy, Jonathan, Jake223, Jake Martin, Amiable Chief, Zlicky, Ishad, Gamers Unite, Mead and Pork, Ian Clifford, Tim Robb, Travis Gooding, Mad Zootsuit Taylor, Greg, Michael McGee, Patty Cake, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Cole Addict, Winwang, Cameron, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sazer, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Reginald Ari, Teak Autumn, Windstar, Little Germany, James I. Raider, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Mac Daffy, Stephen Dick, Justin Bustle, John Swin, Austin Haggerty, Joe Foot, Brian Scanlon, Hardland Jansen, Angima, Slushpaw, Brian Reich, Him Sagung, Sisyphos 7771, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Thalo215, Alex Vega, Michael Cozy, 37x73, Crystal Joe, Elbergun, Kikum, Solarize 80, Sprutnik, Brian P, Hudat 42, Cornster 671, Penta Winta, Hal Richard, Omega Doge, State Farm Snake, Mr. Tiger, Hugo Ander Kiwi, John Wick Boomstick, AI Soldier 789, Porcelain Oats, Curry King 3, Zixus Mania, Bespoke, exclamation point, Fred Burger, Smash Axley, Rahil Chi Bulls, Sheriff Lotfi, Karim El Masri, Kevin Coots, Armand Vacatura, Mad Nolis, Greg Kusis, Callan, Reichel, Jonathan Harris, Elusive Man, Kainush, Kagani, Johnny Trans, Zuber Ahmed, Sean Henry, Bjorn Tuft, Josh, and Angel of Cake. And of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.